Sometimes a face goes still for seconds and your body tightens before your mind knows. Nothing obvious happens, yet the air changes, like warmth leaving a room without any warning. You have felt it during a conversation that should feel normal but somehow does not. A glance lands on you, stays half a beat too long, then disappears too quickly. Someone smiles but their eyes stay flat and your body catches that mismatch right away. A reply comes late, not long enough to explain, just long enough to disturb you. And because nothing dramatic happened, you tell yourself you were probably imagining the whole thing. But that uneasy feeling is rarely random, and it is not proof you are oversensitive. Your mind is catching small signals that do not match the surface of the moment. The strange part is that your body usually notices before your thoughts can translate anything. That is why some looks feel cold even when no one says anything openly hostile. What unsettles you is not the stare itself, but the hidden conflict moving underneath it. A person can look calm while leaking distance, resentment, fear, attraction, shame, or uncertainty quietly. And once you see that, those moments stop feeling mysterious and start feeling emotionally readable. Usually the real shift happens earlier, before the expression freezes, before the silence turns heavy. It begins when someone feels something they do not want fully seen by you yet. Maybe they felt intimidated, maybe interested, maybe defensive, maybe suddenly ashamed of being emotionally visible. Their face stays controlled, but control itself can become the thing you end up noticing. Real warmth moves naturally, and real ease does not need that much management from anyone. When emotion gets held down, the eyes often tighten while the mouth keeps acting normal. When someone wants distance, their gaze may touch you briefly, then pull away too fast. When someone feels drawn in but uncomfortable, the same coldness can appear for different reasons. That is why cold looks are confusing, because tension and attraction sometimes wear similar masks. The face becomes less about expression and more about containment, and containment always feels distant. You sense something shift because humans read patterns faster than they explain them to themselves. Long before language, survival depended on noticing mismatch, hesitation, withdrawal, and tension in other faces. So when a look feels emotionally cold, your reaction is ancient, quick, and surprisingly accurate. Not perfect, not magical, just sensitive to the gap between behavior and what behavior hides. You know, that strange moment when someone looks at you, then suddenly looks away like touching fire. Nothing rude was said, yet you feel a drop inside, almost like rejection arriving early. That moment happens when a person feels something strong, then tries to shut it down. Maybe they felt intimidated, maybe interested, maybe defensive, maybe suddenly ashamed of being emotionally visible. The quick look away is not always dislike. Sometimes it is exposure they cannot manage. But because withdrawal comes first, your body reads the distance before your mind softens it. Another moment feels even stranger. You say something kind and the silence lands too hard. Maybe you compliment them, thank them, or open up a little, expecting warmth to return. Instead, there is a pause, a blink, a smile, then words arriving just late enough. What you are feeling there is not awkwardness but emotion, getting delayed by internal resistance. People answer slowly when they are editing themselves, not because the moment meant nothing emotionally. They may be hiding irritation, swallowing attraction, checking your reaction, or protecting a bruised ego. The deepest signal is usually the pause before the answer, not the answer itself afterward. Then there is a smile that almost works, which can feel the coldest of all. The mouth lifts on time, but the eyes arrive nowhere, and the face feels sealed. You may have felt this in meetings, dates, family dinners, classrooms, elevators, or checkout lines. Everything looks socially fine, but something in you refuses to fully believe the performance anyway. That happens when expression and feelings split apart and your nervous system catches the separation. A smile without the eyes can mean politeness, concealment, resentment, fear, or emotional exhaustion underneath. What makes it feel cold is not certainty about meaning, but knowing meaning splits somewhere. So no, these moments are not always dramatic, but they almost never feel empty either. They linger because a part of you is still trying to solve the mismatch afterward. Most people get this wrong by treating every uneasy look as either nothing or everything. They say you are overthinking, or they say you can instantly read the truth always. Both reactions miss the point because subtle behavior is neither meaningless nor final proof alone. A cold look is best understood as a clue to hidden tension, not a verdict. It tells you something real shifted but not exactly what, and that difference matters deeply. If you assume too much, you create stories that were never actually happening at all. If you dismiss too much, you miss important moments where emotion was leaking through control. The balanced view is quieter, something meaningful happened, and your system picked up fragments first. That is also why these moments can bother you longer than openly rude behavior sometimes. Clear hostility gives your mind a shape, but hidden tension leaves unfinished emotional work lingering. You keep replaying the glance, the pause, the tone, because resolution never fully arrived afterward. The mind dislikes ambiguity, but the body reacts to it faster than words can explain. So you may leave a perfectly ordinary interaction feeling strangely tired, sharpened, or emotionally bruised. Not because you were fragile, but because subtle tension forces constant invisible interpretation from you. You are reading timing, muscle restraint, attention shifts, and emotion trying to stay undercover there. And smaller signals make your mind work harder, deciding whether it was real or imagined. That is why subtle coldness can feel more invasive than obvious anger to you sometimes. Anger announces itself, but concealed tension enters quietly and makes you question your own reading. The experience feels lonely because the strongest part happened underneath the level of explanation first. You felt it, but you could not easily prove it even to yourself at first. The next time this happens, do not rush to decode personality. Notice timing first instead. Ask yourself what changed immediately before the coldness appeared, because the trigger often comes first. Did it happen after eye contact, after praise, after honesty, after disagreement, or after closeness? Timing tells you whether the reaction was random habit or a response to something alive. Second, watch the eyes together with the rest of the face, not alone next time. Eyes that drop while the mouth stays warm can signal withdrawal hiding beneath that politeness. Eyes that return too often, then flee again, can signal conflict rather than confidence inside. What matters is not one glance, but the rhythm between contact and retreat over time. Third, listen for the silence before the response, especially after emotional or personal moments happen. Fast words can still be guarded, but delayed words often reveal internal negotiation happening inside. That pause may contain shame, caution, resentment, attraction, or fear of being truly seen suddenly. You do not need to name it exactly to learn something useful from it anyway. You only need to notice where the broke and how quickly it changed afterward. That keeps you perceptive without turning every strange moment into a conspiracy in your mind. Because the goal is not paranoia, the goal is cleaner emotional reading for everyday life. You may have noticed cold looks most around people trying hard to seem unaffected publicly. Indifference rarely needs performance, but hidden feeling almost always does, in small, visible ways first. That is why the coldness often appears strongest in moments that should feel warm instead. A stranger's flat look can sting, but a loved one's flat look can linger longer. Because history adds weight, and familiar people can trigger older fears faster inside you unexpectedly. A cold look from someone important can wake rejection, shame, longing, or anger within seconds. That does not mean the other person caused all of it from nowhere inside you. It means present signals can touch older wounds, making subtle moments feel larger and sharper. That is another reason these interactions can haunt you after they are over for hours. The moment did not just happen outside you, it pressed against memory too, inside somewhere. And yet the signal itself still mattered because something real opened that old door first. This is why emotional intelligence is less about certainty and more about honest pattern recognition. You notice what appeared, you respect what you do not know, and you stay awake. That stance makes you harder to manipulate, but also kinder with yourself afterward for real. Because you stop calling your discomfort irrational when it was actually information arriving unfinished first. You are not imagining a monster. You are sensing friction under a controlled surface instead. You were not weak for feeling unsettled. Your system was doing its quiet job well. The body often protects you by reacting before your pride can talk you down later. And sometimes it protects connection too, by showing you where someone else is struggling inside. A cold look is not always cruelty. Sometimes it is conflict without language or permission. Sometimes the other person does not even understand their own reaction yet in that second. You can feel it before words appear because expression is usually slower than emotion inside. And once you understand that, the discomfort becomes less personal and more informative to you. Instead of spiraling, you start asking better questions about context, timing, and emotional pressure underneath. Instead of chasing certainty, you notice whether warmth returned, stayed distant, or cracked further afterward. That is usually enough to tell you whether the moment was passing tension or pattern. Patterns matter more than isolated glitches, especially when the same chill appears around similar topics. Maybe eye contact changes whenever honesty appears, or warmth drops whenever closeness gets real suddenly. That pattern tells you more than any single intense moment ever could on its own. And if warmth returns naturally, that matters too, because not every rupture means danger afterward. Some cold looks are brief windows into stress, self-consciousness, grief, or overload in them. What matters is whether the person repairs the moment or leaves you carrying it alone. Repair is often quiet, with softer eyes, easier breath, warmer tone, and less defended timing. When that never comes, your discomfort usually lasts because the mismatch never closed for you. And that lingering feeling is often the clearest sign you sense something real beneath it. You were sensing emotional mismatch, the gap between what was shown and what was struggling. You were sensing a guarded reaction forming before words could clean it up for anyone. You were sensing the small freeze that appears when feeling and self-control collide inside. That is why the moment felt real, even if the meaning stayed incomplete for now. So the next time a look turns cold, trust the signal without worshiping it blindly. Let it sharpen your attention, not your fear, because awareness works better than suspicion here. You may have felt foolish for noticing these moments, but your perception was not empty. It was your mind recognizing tension before logic built a sentence around it later on. If this script names something you have felt for years, that is exactly the point. Tell me the strangest reaction you have noticed, especially ones nobody else seemed to catch. Subscribe to Novi Mind if you want language for the hidden signals most people miss. Because the next video is about the smiles that look warm but quietly warn you.